Welcome to Season 3 of the Dare to Love podcast titled A Woman to Admire. Today is my very first episode back, and of course I'm joined with the most admirable woman I know,
very sweet.
My mom.
Very sweet.
Felt like it was just fitting to have you back as my first guest after a 3-year hiatus. So a lot has happened in the last couple years, so I kind of want to just take a second to talk about coming back to the podcast and the changes that have been made, just kind of where my heart's at and where I want to take the podcast from here. The first thing that everyone might notice is the logo change. So it's like a slight variation. It's still the flowers and the heart. But this is actually my family birth flowers. And I have a tattoo that has all of these on here. It's right here. And I was able to draw it and have the artist tattoo it. And so it just adds, an extra layer to the logo for me it's very personal to who I am and my family. But you may also notice, too, I added this little red gash here on the logo. And it just represents, honestly, a lot of the tragedy that I've been through in the last few years. And the fact that it stays with you. But even with this large gash in this heart, there's still flowers that bloom. And so that's kind of my inspiration behind the new logo. And I just had fun drawing that one and getting that ready. So I had been kind of thinking about the podcast and how I wanted to get back into it, and just wasn't sure if it was really the space for me to be back. And so I wanted it to be comfortable coming back. We're in my living room. I want it to feel comfortable for me. I want my dog here with me. I just want it to be less pressure, less performance, just so much more conversation based, so much more relaxed. Because I just feel like I value things differently now.
Absolutely.
So so that's kind of where I'm at. I really thought that I was done podcasting. I thought I was done with this when JoJo died. And so I put everything away, and I put it all in boxes, and I had contemplated so much because a lot of this equipment's expensive. So I had contemplated many times of selling my mics and all of this set that I do have. And I just could never bring myself to do it. And then I just felt like I always had it. This is my baby. I really worked hard on this show. So even in the midst of all that I was going through, I didn't want to get rid of it,
Right.
And then I just sort of at the end of the last year just felt like a tug back to it. And I was like, okay, God, if this is really something you want me to go back to, you're going to have to prove it, because I'm not just going to do it. And then he sent 3 people to tell me separate times about the podcast. They brought it up in conversation and they were talking to me about it. And I was like, okay. So I started the year with just blogging. Yes, Toby, hi. I started the year with blogging, and eventually I knew that I was going to get back into this space. So it was just taking the time to figure out, plan, and really understand where I wanted to take the show. But so what brings me to a woman to admire is that I feel like as a woman I've gone through so much over the last 3 years since wrapping up season 2 of the podcast, and I want to become that woman that people admire. And so I just want to interview women that I admire, or that have, done really incredible things or gone through incredible things, and like hear their testimonies and kind of like get that glimpse of who they are and who God has, called them to be. So that's why we're here and getting, starting this process of filming season 3. So I'm really excited. I'm glad that you're my first guest.
Me too.
So, do you want to start with filling everybody in on kind of what's been going on, or we can tag team it a little bit?
Tag team. I would like to say that you are a woman that I admire. You have so many strengths, and you just, I've said this before, but like, you remind me a lot of your sister now, because Johanna would go through seizure in situation and she would still bounce back happy. She taught us so much about resilience, and so I think I see a lot of that just in your day-to-day, the things that you have to deal with and go through, and challenges and decisions. And so you're my daughter, but you're a woman that I have grown to admire because of the challenges that you faced head on, and you handle them with grace and dignity. And I just love you. So you are a woman that I admire very much.
Thank you. That's really sweet. It's really sweet. I learned it from you and Dad and my grandma.
Yeah.
Like I came from a really long line on both sides. So
right.
Resilient, hardworking men and women. So in my genes. So we've been through probably hell and back twice over the last few years, and just the place that we've gotten to now, to
just breathe.
To like be able to thank the Lord for the day. And I think that's been huge, like for me especially, like to even be able to sit here and talk about God's goodness, and is just, I think, a testimony in itself.
Absolutely.
But for those that don't know, which we've been very vocal about it, so we don't have to go into like crazy detail or anything, but and when I started filming Beauty from Ashes, which was season 2, was a year after I lost my grandfather, my
dad,
maternal grandfather.
Yes.
And he died on my birthday in 2020, and then my dad in November of 2021. My dad was diagnosed with stage 4 esophageal cancer, and he started chemo and treatment for that. And then in March of 2022, my little sister passed away unexpectedly in the middle of the night, just a fluke, and she was gone. June of 2022, my paternal grandfather passed away. And then February of 2023, I lost my dad to cancer. So we just went through a whirlwind of like loss back to back to back. And just a lot of trauma, and pretty much just surviving. Like I really don't think that I started living until maybe last year, because I was really just surviving through the day, every minute. So, and I think you probably can say the same.
Yeah, you just sort of, I don't know. I think at first it's definitely breath by breath, moment by moment, just one decision at a time, and then each day I guess we have a little more grace from God to realize what He took us through and what we've been through, and shows us that he's got us and we're okay. Because you do feel like the whole ground has just been taken out from under you. Even with just my dad, I know you've mentioned just the sheltering you feel when you have a dad with you, a protector, somebody that's your cheerleader, looks after you, makes sure of the encouragement, and then on top of that, daughter or sister, and then your dad, my husband, your other grandfather. So it was a lot of good people, good men taken out. So I feel like we just felt like the whole ground shifted, like a huge earthquake. And I think you just begin to think what's coming next. You don't really know what to prepare for. You don't know, because it's just some situations that came up that all of them were out of our control, but some of them were unexpected. And you just sort of go through life thinking, this is how my life's going to be, and this is going to be the plan, and this is the things you plan for and you prepare for, and something happens and alters it, and then you have to shift gears and think something totally different, or you sit and think of the worst, which is no good for you. But that happens during grief and loss. And so it's definitely a one day at a time, one moment at a time. I think now we can have some moments that is somewhat normal. It feels like there was a time I think we couldn't get through a conversation without crying or breaking down and having to leave the room, or so I think that there's just moments that you just have to give yourself those moments to collect yourself, give yourself grace. God, I need your help, help me through this, help me gather my thoughts, and then go back in it. And most people understand. I think we've had some situations, but I think for the most part everybody's been very gracious and kind to allow us those moments.
Yeah, for sure. I think inheriting a business has had its ups and downs, but the flexibility of our schedule has been good.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody gets that. So like if we're having a rough day and everything's taken care of at the shop, we can take that day, and they're far and few between, but we can take that day to kind of reset, which is,
Yeah, we have some really good people that man the ship for us and take care of things, and has given us some leeway to do that.
I think what's sort of crazy is seeing how it all plays out. Like I filmed season 2 of the podcast. It was titled Beauty from Ashes, and I had only lost my Poppy at the time. And so that was really the only loss that I had experienced up until that point. So it wasn't somebody that lived in my house, somebody that was older. So it was expected to happen at some point. And there's so many different types of grief for so many different relationships that you have. So, I think even when, let me not get ahead of myself, but there's so many different relationships that you have that affect how you grieve. And so really the only experience I had up until my second season was that I lost my grandfather. And I was interviewing all of these people that had gone through just extreme loss. And I look back on that and I'm like, wow, I really didn't get it. Like, even though I had experienced my own loss, I really didn't understand it the same way that I would now. Like, if I were to go back in time and talk to all those people now, how much on more of a deeper level that I truly get it. But what I was going to say before was, like, we lost all the men in our life that were in our family. Our grandfather, our father, our father-in-law, and husband and dad. And so all of those men that were like super strong and sturdy for us were gone, and that affected us in different ways. but also like how I grieved my dad was very different, or is very different than how I grieved my sister.
Right.
Because, and I'm sure it's the same for you, how you grieve your husband is different than how you grieve your daughter. But for me, like, a sibling is supposed to last your lifetime. Like, you're not supposed to live without your sibling. So that's been a challenge for me. I think at some point you expect to bury your parents, not obviously this early, but like at some point you know that that's going to come, but you don't think that way about your siblings.
Right.
And it's probably the same way
For daughter, yeah.
for a daughter. Like, you don't anticipate having to bury your children.
Right.
So it just feels wrong, you know.
Yeah. Well, for the men in our lives, like, we trusted everything that they said. They never steered us wrong. Like, you know, they always had our best interest. And I think for the most part, not having them to call on for anything, you know, whether it's a light fixture, toilet, car, tires, anything, you know, even just down to just simple advice. So, like, you could call your dad, I could call my dad, we could always go to JT. Like, we always knew they were going to give us honest, straight up, you know, good answer to our situation, and then be right there to help us if we needed it.
Yeah.
But I think that's just like a surface loss to the not physically having them here. Like, that is part of it, but like not having them physically with us is such a deeper core wound that I think when someone, you know, you hear someone passes away and you're like, I'm so sorry for your loss. When we haven't been through it, we really don't understand what to say or how to console that person, because you just don't know until you go through it. But it's such a deep core wound that you'll never be able to heal it. Nobody will ever be able to fix that for us. No one will ever be able to say the right thing or do the right thing. No one can ever replace them.
Right.
And for you, like your sister, you had plans for, like, you know, your wedding day and things that you're thinking future. Same with me, things that I had planned for her and I and your dad as we got older. Your dad and I, plans that we made, you know, together. I think you made plans with your grandfathers, you know, at your wedding and different things. And it's just things that you miss. Yeah. And you know, and it's, I don't know that we'll ever heal from all of that. God definitely replaces us with a grace and a love and even an understanding, as he says, that surpasses you know, our own understanding. He takes care of it. And I think that definitely plays a factor with grief. Like, God is there in the deepest deep part of you, and your deepest valley, your deepest hurt wound, and you won't truly know that part of him until you go through that yourself. So
yeah, it's like you get a glimpse of the suffering that he walked
through,
or that he feels for his children.
Right.
All the time. We get like this small glimpse of that whenever we experience loss. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different layers to grief, because you have the physical absence of that person, you have the emotional absence of that person, you have the future absence of that person. Like, there's so many different levels to that. And then how you grieve comes out in physical, emotional, spiritual ways. Like, it's not just a cookie cutter, you know, thing for each person. I know we've had physical ailments since that. We've had emotional ailments and spiritual ailments since we've been through that. I can remember after JoJo died, the next day when I woke up, my forehead hurt. The muscles in my forehead hurt from crying so hard. I had never experienced a pain like that before, but I strained myself so hard crying that it literally hurt to like raise my eyebrows. and I have never experienced that before. And I remember just being like, it was tender, and that was just immediate physical ailment that I had.
Right.
Following that, we had a hard time sleeping. And we still have issues with sleep to this day.
Mm-hmm.
There's been tons of different stress, the ways that stress absorbs in our body. And the medical attention that we've had to seek just to help us with
function,
stress.
and function.
I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I think everybody should go. Of course, not everybody will, but especially if you've been through, something really tragic, I think it's really important that you go talk to somebody that has no stake in the game, is literally there to help you work through that process. And I had to start taking I was put on an antidepressant, and an as needed anxiety pill as well, because I was under so much PTSD and so much stress from the trauma of what we went through, that my body needed a little bit of help to help me function throughout the day. And I think that those things are really acceptable and shouldn't be frowned upon, or sometimes prayer just doesn't make you feel better. So, it's not to say that you shouldn't do it.
Right. You
should still pray, but sometimes it's not going to be the only answer to, making you be able to sleep at night.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think it's been really helpful for me. So.
Right. I know I ended up having to have stuff to help me sleep, just because that was so incredibly hard after Johanna. But then with your dad's passing, it was really hard to go up to the bedroom, go to sleep by myself, just alone. And the house is so quiet. The house is just eerily quiet. And so I think just the changes that came along with it that you never would expect, just the little things bother you, and you don't know how to handle it. And I know at first I had a lot of issues with my body trying to just get rid of the stress and the pain. And so I had a lot of different issues after Johanna passed away, and then they continued. But I can remember just my heart feeling like separated glass in my chest. That's the best way I can explain it. Like if you shatter a piece of glass, it stays in one piece, but it's like all these different pieces. And I just felt like that's the way my heart felt. And it just would just do that all the time and almost burn. And I just had to get, medication to just relax myself so I could go to sleep at night and get a little bit of sleep, because you're already in they call it the brain fog or the grief fog, and you're already in kind of some kind of fog. And then you add the elements of your body not sleeping and everything else on top of it with the decisions that you got to continue making just to get through, the days. And so you need some sleep, you need some rest for your body, and your brain does not turn off that easily when you go through something like this. And so even though you're not thinking clearly or it's not coming across clearly, it doesn't mean your brain is calm. It's still active, and it's just going crazy with what ifs and whys, and I should have done this, I should have done that, or could have done this better. How could I have handled that? And it's my fault. And
or I can't believe we're not going to get to do this, or he's not going to be there for that. Yeah. And
so you just need something to be able to rest. And I just really think that is good to talk to somebody. It's good to seek somebody. Even you go to the doctor and they don't always have all the answers for it, because how can they? But it's kind of they just look at you and it's just stress. You're under a lot of stress. You need to do this, you need to do that, go home and go to sleep. Well, you can't always do that.
Right.
So, I do think it's good to get help when needed.
Yeah. I would say, what's your biggest advice or tidbit that you would tell somebody like that's experiencing like an extreme loss or loss in general?
Just like, but at the beginning or overall? Or?
Overall, like, what's the thing that's helped you kind of get through it?
I don't think I knew it at first, but now definitely just find your people that you truly trust. Be okay with being quiet. Be okay with being alone, asking God in that moment, seeking Him and asking Him for guidance. Because I think you do feel lost. You feel alone, and because there's a difference than being like alone and then being alone. There's, but you can have God, ask Him to guide you and direct you. And I wouldn't do it without God. I wouldn't advise any of it without, because I honestly don't know how anybody could make it through any loss like that without calling on Jesus, without calling on Him and asking Him to just be there with you. I never thought I would be without your dad. And just walking this road without him physically here, it's taught me that I can count on God more. I can ask God for more. And He's been faithful, and He's come through, and He's shown me that He hears my prayers. And that would be my biggest advice, is just to lean on God, even if it doesn't make sense, even if you never get the answer to your question. But definitely be with people that you know care about you and that they have your best interest at heart. And it's okay that you keep that close knit. It's okay that you don't just let everybody in, and you don't just let all the noise, and it's okay that you're still and you're quiet, and give God a chance to talk to you and where you can listen. Yeah,
I think that's great advice. I also struggled a lot with that. It was, and I think you did too. I mean, you didn't like there to be silence in the house. Or at all, ever. But I really, really had a hard time with just my relationship with God after JoJo died. I think is when it started, because my sister was like perfect, and she never, she has special needs, so she never did anything intentionally to hurt anyone.
Right.
She didn't have a mean bone in her body, and I just thought like God could take her away, like how cruel, and she didn't do anything, and so that really affected me a lot.
Yeah.
So I thought, because we lost JoJo, that there's no way God would allow Dad to die, because we already lost Johanna. So Dad's gonna go through chemo, and it's all gonna be fine, and he's gonna be fine. And I think the shock of JoJo's death and Granddaddy's death, and just the trauma of watching Dad go through treatment, I think we were like in shock for 2 years.
Yeah. Right.
And pretty much just disassociated and just survived, like I said, throughout that time. And so when Dad did die, it was like, oh, okay, so God doesn't like me. God hates me. And nothing that I pray for, He's going to answer, because nothing about my life looks like how I thought it would. I thought I would be married. I thought I would have kids. I thought my dad would be at my wedding. I thought I would, be taking care of my sister till death, until we were grown and, old women. I never pictured that it would just be us two. And I mean, I love that you're with me, but
Yeah.
I just never pictured my life like that. So I definitely took like a downward spiral after JoJo died, but I think it got worse after Dad passed. But I had a really hard time just being alone with God because I was so angry and so just hurt.
Right.
And it actually took me having to pray for somebody else that I cared for that was going through a hard time to bring me back to God, because it gave me a reason to talk to God that had nothing to do with my sorrow. And that's what really drew me back in, honestly.
Yeah.
I was watching somebody that I cared about really hurt, and I didn't know what to do except pray. And that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I just went back to kind of like the root of what I knew what to do. And just kind of like haphazardly being like, this might work. I don't know. Last time I prayed, it didn't work. But, and we act like God is like a vending machine or something where we put prayers in and we get something in return. Or like a gumball machine.
Right.
You put your coin in, you get a gumball. Like, we act like that's the interaction that it is, but it's not at all what he tells us it is. Like, he never said that that's
Right.
how it goes. But we expect that of him. And so when we're praying, like, God heal my dad, God breathe life back into Johanna, we just expect him to pop that gumball out.
Right.
And when it doesn't happen, we're like,
where were you?
what? Yeah.
Yeah.
We get so offended. And rightfully so.
Yeah.
I think I have a lot of grace for myself in that time. But I definitely made some bad decisions. And went down a few paths that I shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I was hurting so badly, and I didn't know what else. I didn't have the right sense to myself. Like,
Yeah. Well, we've often
that brain fog.
We've often referred like how, or explained to people that, like, we told God, you broke our heart, with Johanna, like, you shattered my heart, it'll never be the same, you'll never fix it. I think early on we were told her life expectancy was, I was told 6 years old, and just different things with her diagnosis. I'm actually wearing her shirt today, Bacardi syndrome. Got her little name on it. And but we were told so many different things by so many different doctors, and it was just like she just broke the mold with what they said. Like, it was just never, that wasn't going to be us.
Yeah.
I just I never believed it, and I always believed that God was going to heal her, and with your dad's business, we were going to be able to travel. We had people, working and doing things at the shop and the trucks, and my vision was that God was going to heal Johanna, and we were going to take our RV and take her to different churches and different places, and she was going to stand up on the stage and just tell how God healed her and tell all the wonderful things that God had done in her life, and she could share it from her own lips, her own words. And that's how that was my plan. And when all that shattered, I'm like, I don't understand, God. My plan was a good plan. I thought I had a good one, and I never expected that. Even though we were told things, I refused to believe that was going to happen to us. And you will never prepare yourself for any moment. I don't care if it's sudden or if you have months to plan for someone. They tell you it will never be a good time. It will never feel right. You'll never feel like you've said enough or done enough. You'll always wonder, could you have done something or said something different, handled it differently? And we just have to give it to God. But I do know those moments when we cried out and we told God that you shattered our heart. I, at those moments, thought, I didn't know. I never lost faith in God. I never cursed him. I never blamed him for what happened. I guess because my grandmother taught us early on, we were going to die and we needed to know that Jesus was our Lord. And so that's kind of how she always put it, like, you need to be prepared because one day you're going to pass away. And so I was never afraid for myself to pass away. I didn't want to live here without everybody else, and I didn't want anything to happen to any of you guys. And so, but I think it took me a long time to really come to grips of what had happened and then allow God to begin mending my heart. Mm-hmm. Will it ever be like it was when I'm with Jesus? It took time. It took just a lot of grace on my part that he gave me, to do whatever I needed to do, however I needed to feel, to get to where we are today. And as we're speaking today, we're just over 3 years with Johanna and 2 years for Joey. So I don't know.
Yeah, I am still I feel closer to God now that I've gone through so much pain and loss than I did when I worked at a church. Yeah. And I volunteered and I went to Bible college and I was at literally church every day. I think suffering has helped me understand God more, understand Jesus more, and I will always have questions. I will never know why he allows certain things to happen, but I just have this inner peace that he's with me, even if I don't have all the answers. And it took me a really long time to get to that point. And so I think my advice would be to take your time, go through the emotions, feel what you need to feel. Try not to make bad choices like I did, but if it happens, God is gracious and his mercies renew every day. And you're gonna find your way back again. It's gonna happen. You're gonna get back to yourself again. It's just gonna take time, a lot of time, and a lot of grace on your part to be gracious with yourself, be gracious with the people that have also lost somebody. We had to be gracious with each other. And eventually you'll find a way to enjoy life again and live instead of just surviving. And it happens slowly, and then all of a sudden you're recording a podcast, and it's kind of crazy actually. But I do have this sense of we just watched the new season of The Chosen last night. So it's on my mind, but he's good no matter what. Even if we didn't get the chance to be in a nice house and film this with expensive equipment, and we didn't have the money and the resources to do this, or we weren't gifted each other. What if I was born into a different family, or what if you never met my dad, or even if those things didn't happen, God is still good. And even if he did nothing for us, he's still good. But he does bless us all the time, every single day. Every breath we take is a blessing, and we take so much of that for granted. I think that's probably what grief has taught me so much, is just that we take so much of our lives for granted. We think all we have is time, and that's not true. So.
Absolutely. Well, I totally agree with that. I used to wonder, like, what if I was born in different places, or to a different family, or why was I blessed to be born where I was born, and just different things.
Thank God we were born. Indoor
right.
plumbing
and air conditioning.
Air conditioning, Coca-Cola.
But like with Johanna, I would often say, like, God, even if she doesn't speak mama, even if she doesn't walk, because at the time early on they didn't expect her to even sit up. So the thing was like, even if she doesn't do these things, will I still praise you? Yes. I still honor you for her life. And the same goes with this. Like, it didn't turn out the way that we wanted. I had, my dad was my best friend, kind of my coach, whatever, just always there on my corner. And then I married your dad, right out of being at my house with my parents, and then marrying your dad. And so I've always just had somebody there that took care of me and looked after me. And your dad was like just Wesley 2.0 for me. Like, he just stepped right in and he took really good care of me and you guys, and was a very good provider, great husband and friend. And now I feel like through that, God's like taught me that now I'm learning to depend on God in that area, as where I leaned on my dad, and I leaned on your dad for everything, and just calling him up.
Like, you put your family before God.
Yeah, I did. I absolutely did. But just calling them up during the day and like, I want to do this, or what do you think about that, or should I do this, or should I have handled this differently, and go on every bit of their advice. And now I'm in a position where I'm like, okay, God, is this smart? Should I do this? How should I handle it? So I'm having those conversations with God, and I'm having that relationship that should be first nature to us, to just go to God with everything, because He's created us and given us this life, and you can trust Him. It may not seem like it sometimes, and it may look so chaotic and crazy and maddening, but I think if you can just truly look at it and go, okay, I am created by God. He loves me. He wants the best for me. Okay, so now what? And then just being open and being willing to let Him lead your life and direct your life. And I think when all this happened with your dad especially, it was like, okay, Victoria's going to take over the business. And I can remember saying, okay, God, Joey was like the captain of the ship. And we may not know how to steer this big ship just yet. So we're going to need you to step in this captain's chair. And we're going to need you to help us, and not just for the business, but for us, each one of us, our life here at home. What was the best decisions for you and I here, and, what to do. And so I just remember yielding that and asking God just to help me make those decisions, and for that, I think that's been eye-opening for me. It's something that I really, not that I never had to do, I don't want it to sound like that, but I always had your dad or my dad to take care of me. I always had I had somebody to lean on that I could trust. And then it definitely had put me in a different position with a different perspective. And God has really shown up in that area for me. But the other thing, change subject, but for you and I, it definitely through all of this, our relationship, mom to daughter, we had our challenges when you were younger. I gave you a hard time because I I wanted everything to be okay, and
I'm just like,
I didn't want you to turn out like me. But I think through that, God has bloomed a beautiful relationship between you and I that, because
we're besties.
we trusted each other, but we've really had to trust each other. Like, we've been thrown into a situation that, not a lot of people go through. So you have to trust me, I have to trust you. And working through that with the business and then with the house and future, just every decision we make now. So I thank God for how He's given us that love and genuine care for each other. I mean, I feel like you take care of me sometimes like you're my mom. You're checking in on me, you're making sure I do this, or are you okay? And so I deep down really appreciate how you care for me, and really blessed that God has given us that beautiful, unique relationship.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful to walk this road with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad I have you.
Me too. Yeah, I think part of what makes you so admirable to me is you just have a gentleness to you, and it's very different from me because I'm very much like my dad's side of the family, and you just have this like JoJo gentleness to you, and kindness to you, and I've yes, when I was a teenager, we gave each other a hard time.
I wasn't a great teenager either.
But, after high school, I feel like we did start developing a better relationship. And it was really just the four of us, and then it was the three of us, and now it's the two of us.
Right.
And it's like our bond has definitely gotten stronger over the years, and so I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah.
And I'm just thankful that God made you my mom, and I really couldn't have asked for a better mom. So, and I think in your gentleness, you're still, and we hate when people say this, but you're still so strong, even in adversary, where you would think someone being gentle, they're going to crumble, but you don't. You still are steadfast, and I know that through this process, I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done all this without you.
Oh, same. I feel the same about you.
So I'm really happy that,
Yeah.
I'm really blessed that God gave you as my mom, gave me you as my mom.
I'm glad I am your mom. He chose you.
Well, what do what, final pieces of advice for anybody? I would say don't give up.
Don't give up.
And don't take a break, but don't completely give up on your dream or things that you worked really hard for. If you need a break, take a break. But God's going to bring that back to you. If God put that on your heart and God gave you a vision for something and he manifested it, he's going to bring it back.
Right.
So that's, I guess, and it's manifesting right now in this podcast, but that's my little final piece of advice.
Mm-hmm. I love how this has kind of have a rebirth for you in this, and then just several people that you've already just spoken to, they're already oh my, this is perfect timing for them. They want to share their stories and healing or their journeys or things that they've been through. And so I feel I think you're a lot more prepared, tools in your belt, I guess. But I think that's the way God wants it. We go through something, however long it takes you to process that or learn that and store it in your belt so that you can in turn help others do the same thing and share their story. And store up the tools needed to put in their belt. I think that's what we do for one another, like, and just encouragement, But I think with this podcast, just the stories that you had before, and then what I know that you have on board for this year, for this season, it's pretty powerful. I think, God's going to do a lot of good things just with the stories that are shared. And is definitely give yourself, if you're going through anything, if you're struggling, give yourself the peace, like you said, and the time, patience, because it will come. It will come together. It may not be the picture that you planned, but it will come. God will see it through. He'll see you through. And I'm excited. Excited for you.
Scripture, I think it's in Philippians. I think it's Philippians. But it's, he who has began a good work in me will be faithful to complete it. He doesn't start something and not finish it.
That's right.
So, the devil tried, and he thought he won for a little bit, for sure, because I really doubted God's existence there for a couple years. But God got me back. So
I love that, because you have, everybody has that choice. Everybody will have that moment. No matter what the situation that gets you to that moment, you will have that moment in your life where you turn your back or you engage and trust God through it. We just have to, you don't know until you get there. You won't know what it'll be. You don't know how hard it'll be. We don't know if we have more challenges to come, but we know what we got. We know where God has brought us from, and we know what He's taken us through. And we know that He's been with us, and we can feel that. It maybe not always have felt that way, but in the moments that we truly deep down needed it, He was there, and He got us through it.
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest things, this is the last thing I'm going to say, because I don't want to keep talking, but God's not a feeling, and we always equate God to this like warm, fuzzy feeling we feel at church when we're worshiping, and you feel like the Holy Spirit move, and we just equate that to like God. And so whenever we're in a situation and we don't feel that anymore, we're like, oh my God, where are you?
Right.
You're not here. And He's so much more powerful than just our emotions and our feelings, that to size Him down into that warm, fuzzy feeling is really just making Him so small, and than what He's actually capable of doing. And just because you don't feel God with you in that moment doesn't mean that He's not there.
Right.
Even God said, why have you forsaken me, when He hung on the cross. But that doesn't necessarily mean that God wasn't there with him.
Right. So. And I think there's some instances that we have to feel that. God doesn't mind that we question. He doesn't mind that we yell. He doesn't mind that we're upset. Now, how we act in that is different. Our actions are a lot, but having those thoughts and feelings doesn't bother Him. Mm-hmm. He created you. He created me. He knows what we're feeling. He knows the outcome of our life.